From the Standing Stone Farm Studio right outside downtown Nashville, it's time for the most ridiculous sports podcast in the world. So sit back, relax, and listen as Bobby Butler and Brandon Bond crack open a cold one and talk all things hockey, pop culture, and complain about everyday situations. It's the Pucks Out Podcast on the Penalty Box Radio Network.
Welcome into the Fantasy Show, a member of the Pucks Out family. I'm Bobby, he's Brandon, and he's Davy.
Hey,
you can find us on the three majors of social media at Pucks Out Pod. Now let's get you the info you need to be a champion. How you guys doing this week?
doing good, man. Making it. I mean, as like on a personal level, as far as the playoff fantasy hockey goes, unless we quickly switch to golf rules, I'm not doing well. So I guess it depends on how you frame the question. So
not well is what we're hearing.
Not well, Bob. Not great, Bob.
Davey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm alive and well. I'm feeling good about things.
That's good. So I mean, I've been watching your comeback a little bit, so I'm still barreling the lead, but we'll do a score update later in the show. But let's talk about the recent trade and its impact on fantasy. This comes out a little bit later in the week. We talked about it on the main show. Just to recap, the Penguins received winger Kasperi Kapanen, who had of 69 games played, he had 13 goals, 23 assists. Nice.
Sorry. Sorry, you said it. Yeah. I mean, what do you want? What do you want from me over here? I mean, as far as this is the fantasy show, and I'm here because I'm supposed to show up. But at this point, boys, you know, I've got my Colt 45, my Deuce Foe, my 2x4. I'm just here because, so I don't get fined. Okay.
He's double fisting over here.
Double fisting, I got to, because who wants to take my advice at this point in time? You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you guys still having me on. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
So they also received defenseman Jesper Lindgren and left wing Pontus Aberg, who's, I want to know what team he hasn't been on at this point.
I think he's going for the 31, dude. I think he's going for the full 31.
The Maple Leafs get the 2020 first round pick from the Penguins, which is a 15th overall. They get Evan Rodriguez, Philip Hallander, and David Warsawski. But I think what matters for us to talk about is Kasperi Kapanen. What does this do to his value? Good, bad, kind of stays the same. I believe. It can't. It's good for him, right?
Absolutely, and it's fun. Obviously takes can be a little different. So my take on the main show, was that it was good for the Penguins overall, in my opinion. But I feel like yours was a little different. But I feel like for fantasy hockey, it has to be a completely different take. Like, I still think it's great I think it's great for Kapanen.
Definitely.
I mean,
the only way it could have been a negative for Kapanen is if he was going from like Edmonton to Pittsburgh.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, and even so, going from you don't know what line you're going to play on it. The Penguins are always switching things up and figuring out what's working.
They are, for sure.
As great
the Penguins make Brian Rust fantasy relevant.
As great as Austin Matthews and John Tavares are sometimes, they don't necessarily bring out the best in their line mates. Whereas I feel like Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin do bring out the best in their role players. They make them better players.
That's a good point.
Whereas I don't know that those other two guys do. Because John Tavares playing for the Islanders didn't make a lot of these same guys better hockey players. He was just a good hockey player.
For sure.
Whereas Sidney Crosby makes players a better hockey player. Malkin makes players better hockey players. So I think that it's a fantastic move for Kapanen in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, I think so too, and I also think it's interesting because he's coming from Toronto, which is a high pressure city, but he's going to another high pressure city, so he can handle that, I think too. And I mean, I think the players that he's about to be surrounded with is going to be beneficial for him. I know there's a lot of problems with the Leafs right now. you might as well get out of that situation while you can.
Yeah.
And
let me ask you this though. I would say, yeah, Pittsburgh's a high pressure city for sure. But how much is it high pressure because they have two of the greatest hockey players in the world
And that could
that
be
are
it.
both champions? That is more of internal pressure, which is more able to be handled a little bit. I wouldn't say that Pittsburgh within itself is a hockey town.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
I think the pressure in Pittsburgh is on those two guys.
Yeah.
If they don't perform well, then the pressure's on. They're not expecting Brian Rust to be great. In Toronto, they expect every single player from the first to fourth line to be great. And if you're not, they want your head on a pitchfork.
Well,
I mean,
and it's different because if you asked what I would assume to be 9 out of 10 people in Pittsburgh, if the Penguins were if we said, oh, one of the teams or 3 of the teams in your city have to be, I guess 2 teams have to be eliminated, and the Pirates and the Penguins were gone and the Steelers were still there, I don't think anybody in the city would care. You know what I'm saying? Like you're saying, whereas in Toronto, it's hockey, man. They got the Blue Jays and the Raptors. That's what I'm saying. But if you go ask a Toronto guy, 9 out of 10 people would say,
even though they'd be eliminated a championship team,
right? Yeah, I don't think they would care.
No, they would
because it's. I mean,
Drake
same,
would care.
but the same way with the Pittsburgh Penguins, though. They're a Stanley Cup winning team as well, and they would happily eliminate them.
We'll talk about it next week. I mean, I can straight up. I have multiple family members who are all from. I actually have family members on my side and my wife's side who are from Pittsburgh. And
I know we got invited.
So
up,
I will straight up ask that if they had to cut, because I mean they're 2 teams from the city. I'll straight up ask them and ask what they think, and then we'll come back. I agree with you. I think they would say
that's
Steelers, but
I would say so too.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I want to hear this.
But only because they're not all hockey fans. And now, obviously, you ask hockey fans, different story.
Well,
if you ask the one Pirates fan, he's going to have a different theory.
Well, but it also goes back to, and I guess it really depends on how you frame the question. What does more for your city? And if we're asking, look, I love the Preds to death. The Titans, even being bad, having an NFL football team does more for your city in the South than having a hockey team does. I would imagine with the depth.
So I agree, and we can. There are. I'm sure there are stats on that, and but I think in this specific case of Nashville, in recent years, just looking over the past, let's say 5 years, I believe the Preds have contributed more to the income of the city, at least.
I'm sure there's numbers, but I would almost 100% guarantee that it does not.
I mean, you're talking about 82 games. 41 games a year. Mm-hmm. You're talking about making it to the Stanley Cup final. You're making it to playoffs.
The Titans made it to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm talking about, I said the last 5 years.
Last 5 years, yeah, sure.
Just in recent history.
There is a difference from bringing 20,000 folks in, most of which of those 42 games or 41 games are on weekdays, than bringing 65,000 people to your city on a Sunday and it being a big deal because there's only 8 of them. The economic impact is almost completely different from when it comes to football and it comes to hockey.
For sure.
As much as and I'm not disagreeing that the Predators don't bring in a lot money.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
I definitely think that. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, listen, I think NFL teams are, but if you're out there and if you have that stat, because I just did a quick, I mean, that's not something easy I can just look up.
Right.
But I'm sure I could find it and we can talk about it next week. But if you're out there and you know that stat, someone might say, oh, actually, they had $1.5 million more worth from tax revenue or something like that.
And what I mostly base that on is college football in particular. It doesn't matter what school you're talking about in that, let's say the SEC. Kentucky is known for their basketball team, not their football team, correct?
Correct.
Kentucky makes all of their money and pays for basically all of their sports with football because tickets are more expensive because there's not as many games. There's not as much of it, and there's more seats there. So almost every school, even a basketball school, makes their money from football. So when looking at that, I just feel like football definitely has more of an economic impact probably overall than hockey does. But I mean, again, we're just spinning wheels here. We don't know. I'm sure we could probably find it out. We could probably.
But what I
get
will
some
say quick
information.
is it has been nice as somebody that comes from the North where hockey is very prominent up there and seeing the impact that the Predators have had on the community.
Yes.
And how hockey has become a lot more popular down here and the building of 2 more arenas and things like that. It's been pretty
Winning
great.
that. Winning definitely does that. I completely agree with that. But when it all circles back to is Kapanen being in Pittsburgh, while there may be pressure, there is nothing like the pressure that you're getting in Toronto for yourself and what you're expected to do and what you should do. So I think we went a really long way to all say that we absolutely agree with one another.
So here's the thing. I've found the number for the Preds. And for their economic impact, I was close to finding the Titans, but they don't give me an actual number. They just say that it'll be bad if fans can't come. It's like, oh yeah, I figured that.
Of course.
But they did say that just the NFL draft brought in like 33 million.
Yeah.
The Predators, they bring in an annual economic impact of $410 million, and just in the Stanley Cup run just brought in 50 million. That's crazy that the NFL draft, a one-day event, brought in almost 3 times the amount of the entire Stanley Cup run for the Preds.
And I think
it's wild.
The reason for that being is because while, yes, some people come in and stay in hotel rooms to go to a Preds game, coming into Nashville and staying in a hotel room is just a bonus that the Preds are in town. It's not generally what brings people into town. Whereas for a football game, people will travel from Memphis, from Knoxville, from all across the state.
If you're
Kentucky,
playing
Alabama.
They said if you're playing a team like Philly, it's usually about 10,000 visiting fans.
Crazy.
But if it's a team like Buffalo, it's more like 2,000 visiting fans.
Well, Buffalo showed out this year at the
They
Titans.
did.
Yeah.
So like,
it was
the
most. I think it was an article from 2018. So I mean, it's but we'll do some more research. Let's continue on, and let's
next week on Fantasy Economics.
Brandon Gallagher from Montreal. He underwent a CT scan on Thursday. I don't know if I have a previous of rec. I did. Who put that in there? Did I put that in there?
Previous of recording.
Oh, previous of recording. I think I put that in there.
You did put it in there.
I was like, previous of recreation. I don't know.
Oh, it was a recreational cross check. He was just doing a quick scanning of the cat.
From when Matt Niskanen tried to murder him.
Oh, it was dirty,
so man. Niskanen got 1 game. He was back in. If it had gone to game 7, Niskanen would have been back. Gallagher, not so much.
You'd think with that with that suspension, he was Corey Perry.
That's fair. I hate it. I think he deserved more.
Dude, I'm waiting for someone in the NHL like booth, like to whenever if Corey Perry does anything, just start playing his walk of shame. Just when he's leaving, and I want them to put like the sounds when Squidward is walking. Just the flip. Oh, what a great video, man.
It is great. I loved it.
But yeah, so I mean, I assume we're all on the same page. That's bullshit.
Yeah,
the one game suspension.
One game for, like I said it earlier. That's attempted murder in a lot of states. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's assault, brother.
And it's not even it wasn't even like there are some incidental type of thing. Like hockey's I don't think any of us are sitting here saying that a big hit that is clean that guy deserves to be suspended because so-and-so got hurt. That was intentional. Very clearly intentional.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Flat out dirty.
It wasn't bang bang.
And my biggest thing is he has a history.
Right.
Yeah, he does.
Like what it blows my mind how the Player Safety Association, it's not like this is the first time this is probably the 80th time that they've completely blown a suspension call.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on for years.
Well, and you tend to, and everybody sees what they want to see when it comes to this stuff.
I would love to hear the defensiveness getting in this position. I know they're out there, but I would love to hear it.
Doesn't it always seem like, not that Montreal isn't a quote unquote big market, but as of late, Montreal hockey is not a big market, whereas Philly seems to be bringing in a lot of money.
Well,
and depending on,
and here's another thing. Brandon Gallagher is not liked by the refs. It is a known thing. Brandon Gallagher is hated by refs, whether it's his trash talking, whether it's his, the way he kind of sells things a little bit too much. And 100% that played a role in this. It shouldn't have, but it did.
Well, I would even agree with, more, not that you're arguing on one side of it, I would even more agree with it if the dude's head wasn't slammed into the boards and he was immediately, his whole face was bloody. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
This is not.
Well, he lost teeth too, didn't he? It looked like it.
That dude is a great faker. You know what I'm saying? Like he was wearing one of those fake blood packs in his mouth. That was. I mean, one game. That's a 3-4 game suspension
at the minimum until the rest of the series.
So change the player. So go ahead and say Shea Weber or Max Domi or somebody like that was in Brendan Gallagher's shoes. What happens there? What's the situation?
I think it probably is a little different.
Yeah,
arguably.
I think he at least gets the game 7 suspension if it goes to game 7. Yeah, and I think he at least gets 2 games.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. While suspending per series, like give that man a number of games and he has to sit out that.
Well, yeah, when I say 2 games, I mean that's why he would get 2 games. That is because if it had gone to game 7, he would have been back before Gallagher. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean that, and we talked about that a lot early on, right after
we
started this podcast.
I think that was like our first discussion of
Ryan Ellis missed 20 some odd games, and Corey Perry had to miss 5 for what was and you're a Stars fan, but like if Ryan,
a repeat offense,
if Ryan Ellis did it to Corey Perry, it's not like I would be having a different argument. You know what I'm saying?
And let's put this in perspective. Sean Avery was banned from the league for talking, just talking crap about his teammates.
Right.
I don't know if I'm really like getting the wide scope of it. I mean, I'm sure it's more, but he got banned. He got the Pete Rose because of just talking shit about teammates. Yet you have guys assaulting people on the ice and they get to just come back in a game or 2. Like, this is just insane, the inconsistency in the league.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
I agree.
It's not that they're just being lax with it. They're being very inconsistent with it, which is where people have, you can argue he should have. I mean, we talked about Philip Forsberg getting 5 games for a on the puck around the net hit on Jimmy Vesey. He got 5 games because they said he was going after him intentionally because everybody was mad at Jimmy Vesey for leaving Nashville. Like, dude, have you seen Jimmy Vesey play hockey? Ain't nobody here mad about it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the biggest problem that we can always argue more suspension time, less suspension time, but it's not that. It's more that we have zero idea what you're going to get. Like, you could literally swing a stick at somebody and maybe get 80 games and maybe get 1, right? Or get a pat on the back. That's the biggest problem.
But all right, Tom Reardon relieved from coaching duties from Washington Capitals. What do we think? First off, are there any prospects who we know might take a spot? And what do we think that a new coach may do for them in fantasy wise?
Hey, what about Laviolette? He's still out there, Laviolette. He's out there. I mean, I don't know. And then there's God, I can't.
Don't say Babcock.
No, not Babcock. I mean, I don't know. There's a few guys out there, but I mean, that was my first thought. I don't know why I thought him, but I just realized he was still out there.
Because he can go into
follows
a
Barry
team.
Trotz.
Well, he can go into there we go. That's number 1. But he can. But I mean, if we're being honest, he can go into a team and kind of completely change it up really quick. And, and I mean, Laviolette has been a guy that has shown he can be a great coach for a small stretch of time. And I don't know what it is specifically, but what a lot of coaches that start great and just fall off, what I would have to guess is it's a my way or the highway type of style of coaching.
Yeah.
And it's not playing to who you have and what you have available to you. It is, this is my style and this is how we're going to play, whether it fits the guys or not. I think that he would be a good coach, at least for a little while at the Capitals.
For sure. That was my first choice.
Offensive style and the way he coaches hockey.
I don't think that his coaching style will complement Ovi's. I don't know if his play, like Ovi requires that your offense is centered around this guy. Peter Laviolette, he is more of a, let's not focus around one player, let's focus around a play style.
Yeah, and I
would
agree
hope
with that
he's smart enough to change that, but I mean, I don't know.
While I sort of agree with what you're saying, I kind of don't either, because Ovi's play style, I don't think is, I want this to be centered around me. It is, I want this offense to
and here in the face-off
set me up type of deal. Yeah. And I feel like Ovechkin can play with any coach, because I mean, there isn't a coach in the world that doesn't say drift out and take a one-timer and get a shot. You know what I'm saying? And not that that's the only aspect of Ovechkin's game, but we can all agree that we have literally sat there and watched Ovechkin just drift out on the left
and
dot.
He's like, it's like just visible.
How are you doing that? And it's not because nobody doesn't see him doing it. It's because he just slides right out without anybody noticing him. And he has one of the greatest one-timers that we've ever seen in the history of hockey. You know, I mean, I don't think that's I don't think that's a hot take here. So I think for a little while that it would definitely work. But I think overall, I mean, we saw what worked for Ovechkin and the Capitals and what was arguably roughly the same team. Barry Trotz was able to go in there and take a very aggressively defensive style of hockey, and Ovechkin was able to succeed in it. And that is something that not a lot of coaches have anymore, and not a lot of teams want to bring a coach like that in anymore, in my opinion. And we talked about it earlier, but I mean, Barry Trotz is a great hockey coach that can get players, superstars, role players, to play into that role that's what is needed for the team. And I mean, Ovechkin is not a diva superstar. He is a Russian guy through and through, that he doesn't feel he's more important than anybody else. Ovechkin wants to win hockey games and score goals. Yeah. And so I feel like
that is fair to say.
I feel like it's never been, and we've never at least heard of, it's not this diva, the superstar and the coach are at odds with one another. I think Ovechkin's going to play great hockey no matter who's coaching him. I think it's more getting those other guys into that role that they need to be to win hockey games. Barry Trotz went and won a cup there. We're talking about a 2-time President Cup winning team that was ousted in the first round multiple times.
And they still have that same core. Like, that core is still there.
That's what I'm saying. Guys, and it's not like, oh, well, Trotz got lucky because they were playing so-and-so. The 2 times they were kicked out in the first round played the Penguins, right? They were kicked out in the first round after winning the President Cups, playing the Penguins. And the year that Trotz and them won the cup, they played the Penguins. So it's not as though that they're playing these. Trotz got an easier run to the cup, and not that winning the Stanley Cup is ever an easy run, no matter who you play. But it's hard to argue that the differences are, well, Trotz just had a different road than the guys before him. So, I mean, it's funny because he went in there, showed that it was able to be done, and then went and left town, went to the Islanders, and then showed that it's able to be done again. Without the, we talked about it on the earlier pod, without the touted free agent prospect that everybody in the league would have given their left a nut for, in John Tavares, who has shown he's a great hockey player, but maybe that's not how you win championships necessarily.
Yeah. And before you continue and before we move on real quick, I'm just going to throw one more name out there, Gerard Gallant.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw him out real quick. He's there too. So those two, would be my choice.
Those are great options.
But you know what I will say, I would actually be happy to see a new coach. Not the same. I don't want to keep seeing the same old pool of coaches just playing a carousel. Bring someone new up. Bring someone who's been in a different league.
Can I throw a name out there that's not necessarily a new coach, but he sort of is, because I'm hoping that we can all agree he didn't get his fair shake. Phil Housley.
Okay.
I feel like Housley went from the Predators assistant coach and went and coached Buffalo and got a short straw, a very short straw, some ownership that didn't seemingly care enough with a hurt Jake Eichel for multiple years and lots of contract issues. I feel like Phil Housley could be a great coach in this league that has never really gotten a fair shake.
Yeah.
I feel like that's,
I wouldn't be mad at that. I consider that out of the coaching carousel.
Right. Well, and if he goes and win, if he goes and if you can't win hockey games with Alex Ovechkin at the helm, then we've got our answer.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like we've got a fair shake of the tree with Phil Housley.
I find it very difficult to see the Washington Capitals go out and not pick a coach that has seen action, like a lot of action before. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think they're going to be the team to do it. I'm just saying I would love to see it. And
it would be nice.
It's probably going to be a team like Buffalo or
Let me throw this out there. Andrew Davis as the coach of the Capitals.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm in the running.
You guys think? Hey, you heard it here first, folks.
Hey,
coaching rumors, dude. That's how rumors start.
Yeah,
dude.
put it on Twitter and boom.
That's how people get hired, buddy. Hey, I don't want to be an assistant coach. That seems like a lot of work. But
goalie coach.
I want some. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I don't know if I could coach Holtby though. You really screwed me in that fantasy league, bro.
Right.
All right. Speaking of goalies, Grubauer and then Eric Johnson out indefinitely for the Avs. Oh, man, that's
big blow there.
Yeah, big blow. Lucky for you on fantasy wise.
Yeah, I'm happy about that, but don't want the injury.
Do we have a word yet about what the injuries are and how the severity?
Can I speak up to this? I think they're hurt, Bobby.
Well, there you have it, and we will be moving on.
No updates. I do know that indefinitely is an interesting word. It's hard to gauge what it is.
Sports. Indefinitely could mean next week.
When it's hockey.
It could.
It's hockey. We're talking about literally the only league that is not required to tell you how someone's injured. They can say, it's an upper body injury, and it could be
now it's just not fit to play, which is saying not fit to play is literally the same as saying they're hurt.
Pretty much, yeah. Grubauer is going to be out for a bit. I mean, it didn't look good. I mean, you could tell it looked like it was something routine that he was going to make a routine save, but then it looked like he pulled the groin, and that is not. I mean, that doesn't feel good, obviously. And I think he's out for a good bit. I think Franco's the guy now. I think he's going to have to step up, and it's not like he's a bad goalie.
Good second. I was about to say good second option. For sure.
They were great goaltenders together. Grubauer went down earlier in the season this year as well, so that's where Franco got a lot of his playing time, and so he did great. He performed quite well, so I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue as some of us think. But then there's a lot of people out there that think that is going to make or break the team. I think Eric Johnson's more of a problem in my opinion. One of
the bruisers of the team, not necessarily that guy that's flashy, but he does provide a lot to the team.
He does.
Just a quick update. Brandon's also out indefinitely. Guys, I'm sad about being on. We got to do another one of these in 2 weeks. Okay.
Oh man.
Okay. Let's move on.
You could catch me though. You might.
If
Landeskog has Landeskog scores like 10 goals.
Hey,
see, the thing is, my guys that are straight dominating right now,
just
to pull me
our
up,
guys,
just straight dominating. I got my boy Landeskog and Rantanen, who got me 23 and 32 points. They're just feeding Davy's guys right now, and most of the time, Bobby's guys are getting fed from my guy. Like, if I had the option on this fantasy league to just drop these guys, so like, yeah, I would just be like, no, I just gave up. I was not, it wasn't anything about, I was just done with fantasy sports. So
let's do this last 7 days. I've scored 73. Davey scored 87. You've scored 54.
Again, it's hard. It's that's this is golf rules, right? I thought that that was our intention to pick guys that were not going to be there at the end of the.
All right, so let's move into our winners and losers. I actually put some formation to this time. We're doing 2 each, not 6 each. I'll start. So just an update. And actually, this is not updated.
Losers don't have any formation. I've got 3, but I'm adding a 4th.
Okay. All right, so a quick update on the leaders. We have the assist leaders tied. We have Miro Heiskanen and Nathan McKinnon at 11. Point leaders, we have Nathan McKinnon at 18. Goal leader, we have Nathan McKinnon at 7, tied with Joe Pavelski at 7.
Pavelski.
Who would have thought, right?
That dude was as good as dead. like 3 weeks ago. Like if you heard the name Joe Pavelski, if any of us would have drafted Joe Pavelski, the other 2 of us would have absolutely railed them, absolutely railed them. So, hey, Joe Pavelski has always been a dominant force in fantasy hockey because this is what this is geared around, right? Not this past year when he went to Dallas, but 2 years ago, Joe Pavelski was a top 3 round pick, and it was no question. It wasn't like, oh, should I take Joe? It was Joe Pavelski is a great hockey player. And it took him a little time to settle into his new role in Dallas.
It really did. He was having a tough time. And this season really was not a great season for Pavelski. We signed him on like a 3-year deal, and then this is why we signed him. This is why we signed him.
You're obviously a Dallas fan.
Yes.
And what line is he running right now? 3rd, 4th?
He's on the 2nd.
Okay. So, well, is that just because of now? But like throughout the season, where was Joe Pavelski playing?
He was 2nd and 3rd. He was bouncing up and down. They shifted lines more than any other team, I think, in the NHL this season, and including that top line, which I'll talk about when they're one of my winners. But yeah, Pavelski, it's a shock to me, but this is why they signed him. They need some a veteran presence out there, and actually Dallas is one of the older teams in the playoffs right now, and I believe if I'm correct there, but
surprising but not, right? What I'm saying, like you hear the name Joe Pavelski showing out in the playoffs, like you can't be really surprised.
This is a guy that consistently scores 30 goals a year.
Yeah.
Except for this season, of course, but yeah, that's
the nature of Dallas though, man.
It is. It really is.
All right, so let's move into our winners. I've got, and now this was before the second round started, I've got the Avs. The Avs in the first round were killing it. Dude, they put up 2 back-to-back 7-goal games. I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing against an NHL team, not just that, but in the playoffs, putting up 14 points in 2 games is insane.
Well, not only that, obviously you said that like 3 times, but again, not only that, against what we could probably all argue in the goalie that despite his team probably has had one of the best playoff. Like, I mean, obviously getting 7 goals dropped on you twice, in a row is not great, but even those 7-goal games, it's like, man,
he looks good.
Is it 5 guys just going and trying to score on Kemper? Because that's what it looked like a lot of times during that Phoenix. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage the Coyotes and what they did against the Preds, but there were times that there were 3 or 4 of the losses that the Predators had. They played better. They had better shot selection than the Coyotes, and in any other goaltending situation would have won a series. Kemper dominated this series, and the Coyotes did nothing to help him, in my opinion. So that's a great winner.
And so my second one, player on the Avs, dude, Nazem Kadri has been lighting it up. I don't have his stats.
He's provided a presence, and basing it on this fantasy podcast, Kadri was always a guy that you wanted to have on the team. Hits, he could win face-offs if you needed him. If your league plays with penalty minutes, I mean, he's going to get you some penalty minutes.
He was a category player for sure. He was a numerous category player.
And that's why, this is obviously a fantasy podcast, but it's so hard to really base and talk about fantasy and the real aspects of fantasy with the playoffs going on, and especially the way that we did our fantasy league. We're all in the same league, the Peck of the Litter league.
Mm-hmm.
We're cat players, and what that means is we play categories, and so it's essentially a head-to-head matchup. Me and Davy are playing with one. Whoa, almost said that weird. Me and Davy are playing one another, and different categories mean something. So it doesn't matter. Let's say, just to make it simple, we playing goals, assists, hits, and blocks. Davy has a guy that scores 100 goals. I may lose the goal category, but if my guys get more assists, hits, and blocks, then I win 3-1 in that week. And so fine. So categories, and I'm super excited about us to kind of really get into the in-depth of hockey, fantasy hockey, and what is the differences between just dude scores a lot of points as opposed to you don't just pick the guy that scores the most goals. Yeah. You're picking across the board. There are a lot of these guys.
And you also need to decide, are you just going to sacrifice something? If you,
right. It's called punting. And we'll talk about punting. I forget goals. I'm going to go with the dudes with the most amount of hits and the most amount of blocks and the most amount of face-off wins. And I mean, you see, and that is more what we can't really talk about throughout. Obviously we can, but not based off what we're doing. Whereas our only goal was point scoring.
Yeah.
A lot more strategy involved with that. And that's what I'm excited about.
So Kadri stats, he ranks 6 in the playoffs right now, but he's got 6 goals, 6 assists at 12 points. But here's the names in front of him: Aho, Rantanen, Pettersson, Heiskanen, McKinnon. That is a great group to be in.
That's the first round of a draft right there.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and none of us took him.
Does Nobody. And nor should any of us based off what we're doing.
I mean, but what he's showing his maturity on that Avs team. I mean, it would be honestly, who really needs a player like that? The Leafs.
If only they would have had an opportunity for a guy like that. Does it have his full stats on there?
Yes.
Hits, blocks.
So hits.
Tell us the full story.
Hits. He's got a whopping 9 hits. Not great. But he's got 84 face-off wins, which, everyone above him, he dominates. The only person who's got more, there's a couple people that have more than Ryan O'Reilly, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Braden Point.
I would have to say that he probably will rank higher than a few of those guys
overall.
So.
Yeah. But, I mean, he's got 5 power play goals.
And we're talking about in a category fantasy league, which is really, again, what I kind of want to guide us towards talking about is the value of that.
Yeah.
That's multiple categories that you're getting there in a power play point and a goal point.
Mm-hmm. And something really important for cat leagues, he's got 3 game winners.
Winners.
That is something that, if you get one of those, for the most part, you can sometimes, you can usually get away if you have one.
Well, those are
almost as good as shutouts.
Now let's real quick. I want to, again, because I feel like we've talked a lot of hockey and we've talked about the fantasy aspect, but we haven't really delved into what it means for actual fantasy hockey. Hockey's one of those weird sports where literally 100% of games have a game-winning goal. Okay. And what they consider the game-winning goal is basically if it's not, it's a buzzer beater shot like a basketball game. If the game ends up
the go-ahead goal
5-2, whoever scored that third goal for the team that scored 5 goals gets a game winner. So that is something that, a lot of leagues don't like, and it adds a little bit of randomness to the factor. I feel like we keep that in our league, and we do like it because of the randomness. anybody can get a game-winning goal if it's the third goal of a 7-1 goal or second goal of the 7-1 victory.
It's a hard stat to strategize for. It really is. And it's kind of one of those random ones.
You can't punt it. You can't. I mean, because anybody can get it, and it kind of throws a. We play a 15 category league, and so we throw a lot of different random stuff in there that you can strategize for.
Definitely.
So I also want to. So obviously, there's one player above him that has lower time on ice. Sebastian Aho, because he can't get any more time on ice.
He is,
but Kadri has 180 minutes time on ice. I just want to show you: Rantanen 198, Pettersson 212, Heiskanen 285, McKinnon 209.
Wow.
He's doing all this with substantially less time on ice.
And I feel like you've talked about, to go outside of fantasy, why we may see the Stars are going to be able to pull this out with no problem. 4 of those guys that you're talking about with high ice time are on the same team.
Yeah.
And that hurts you long term, especially in a playoff style of hockey.
Especially if this next game, like all it takes is a game or two going to triple overtime, those legs are going to start getting tired. And the way this is working, you don't have sometimes that 2-day break like regular playoffs. No, you get a day break and you're back to it.
Is Kadri playing second line right now? Is he second line?
I would imagine he's third.
I'm not sure. I know
third hitting line would be my guess, but I mean, he could play. I mean, that was also I feel like we've all at some point in time, I don't think you were in the league the first year, but then you were in there the second year. We're 5 or 6 years deep in this fantasy league.
Right.
And I feel like we've all had Kadri at one point or another. And I don't know about you guys, but it was always nice to have a guy like him that was across the board going to provide some depth.
So moving on now, Davey, why don't you give us your winners?
Yeah, so this is kind of ironic because last 2 weeks ago, actually, I
had them as your losers.
I had the Dallas Stars as my loser team, and once again, I know this guy. He's a Stars fan. Why does he talk about the Stars? But no, this is legit here. This team looks like a whole different team. I mean, it come from the first couple games of the Flame series and the round robin. This is a whole different team. And
agreed. We talked about it last week, Davey. I mean, we had a back and forth on. You never know what team the Stars is going to be. They could be the best team in the league or the worst. Exactly.
And so, obviously Miro Heiskanen, 14 points. This guy is kind of the guy right now. And obviously Klingberg is we had this conversation. I picked Klingberg over Heiskanen thinking, maybe it was time for Klingberg to step up in the postseason. They're pretty, Heiskanen's obviously beating him. Klingberg has 8 points, Miro with 14. But anytime your defensemen are putting up good points like this, you're going to be all right. I mean, Dallas is, they've got 3 defensemen that are doing a pretty solid job right now in terms of points, but mainly Heiskanen and Klingberg. But of course, then we talked about Pavelski earlier, who is, obviously he's one of the goal leaders right now. Is that correct? That's insane. Yeah. So,
Agreed.
Impressive. I've got Hugh Dobin, obviously he's killing it. He was not expected to be the guy. He was supposed to be the backup. Ben Bishop is.
If you watched him play hockey this year and you happen to be lucky enough to have him backing up, depending on how you set your style up. Some people play 2 goalies, some people play 4.
Yeah.
To have him as a bench guy, just, for when a start was happening, he was valuable. He was very, very valuable this year. So Ben Bishop had a great season, but to say that it's surprising that they turned to Khudobin would be a straight lie. Because his limited opportunities, he dominated this year.
For sure he did. And Bishop is unfit. So that's what's going on with Bishop. Nobody knows what's going on with Bishop, let's be honest. And so Jake Ottinger is the backup right now. Haven't seen him play yet, will we?
Story of Bishop's life.
You're absolutely right on that one. But Seg and Ben Radulov finally turning it on, which they needed to. They combined for 10 points in round 1 versus the Flames. They had 8 points in game 1 versus the Avalanche. There they are. They have arrived. Are they going to continue to arrive, day in and day out against this Colorado team? I sure hope so, because we're going to need them to. So that's impressive that they're finally here. We needed them earlier, but hey, if they can keep pouring the gas on the fire, they're going to be just fine. Into the next one, I've got my next winner is the Islanders. And
stole it from me, bro.
Did I?
Yeah,
I keep stealing your things, man.
Well, I know, but you got into the dock first, so you didn't steal it.
Right, fair.
I was gonna steal yours. I was like, Islanders. Oh.
Right. Well, fair. Well, I've got the Islanders here because they're playing really good hockey right now, and Anthony Beauvillier is one of my favorite players that I've watched over the last this season. I really enjoyed watching him play, and he's got 9 points now, 5 goals, 3 assists. Doing a fantastic job. He's 23 years old. He's a young guy, and he's doing a fabulous job. I mean, Josh Bailey's leading their team in scoring right now with 10 points, and Brock Nelson. I mean, 8 points. We can't let this guy. I mean, this guy was, I think, second on their team in points this year, and here he comes. He's having a great postseason. It's impressive. He's actually a North Dakota kid, where I grew up watching him, and actually was a freshman at University of North Dakota when he was. So that was pretty cool. Got to know him pretty well, and then.
You banged your girlfriend probably.
Twice, yeah. So I allowed it. I'm kidding.
You watched.
I was there.
And my girlfriend, it was him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he banged old Rosie Palmer over there. Category players too. That's something you could always get from the Islanders. I mean, you really lit up something that you mentioned earlier of a category player. Meaning across the board, you're going to get some stat fills from them. And they may not be the top goal scorer, the top assist leader, or the top hitter, but they're going to get you a little bit of each.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Brock Nelson was one of those guys that he was never going to light up your team. He was never going to lead your team to a championship. But as a streaming player, when you needed, all right, so I'm 15 face-offs from winning, but I'm also 2 assists down. I could steal a couple categories by going and snagging up Beauvillier, or Anders Lee, or Brock Nelson, and it's funny how these stat fillers are how you win hockey games. Ultimately, yes, we're talking about fantasy overall, but. And, having that superstar always helps. Having a Jamie Benn or a Tyler Seguin always helps. And nothing against Matty Barzal. And he has shown himself to be what everybody thought he was. They are who we thought they were, type of deal.
Yep.
You have really highlighted in terms of fantasy what these role players are able to do, and it's really one of the reasons that I personally, and I think Bobby as well, we kind of talked about it and wanted to get into fantasy hockey because of how much you can learn about the entirety of hockey. When I want to learn a sport, I was not a huge hockey. I mean, I was always a Predators fan. Go go Nashville.
Yeah.
But 6-7 years ago, Bobby and I were not hockey fans, right? I
was light hockey, not like we are now.
I'm not saying I didn't like sports or I didn't like hockey. I said the way that we need to get into hockey is by how we get into anything, and that's fantasy hockey.
Yeah.
If you are listening because you're a normal Pucks Out podcast listener and you really want to get into hockey and learn about it and learn all those third and fourth line guys, play some fantasy hockey. Play a couple public leagues at first.
I think that works for most sports. I mean, didn't work for me with basketball. I played fantasy basketball. Don't think I watched a single game.
I don't watch any basketball either. But I'm more of a fantasy competitor than I am. I'm more
I did research. I did more research.
I love fantasy.
Yeah.
But if you pair it with something that you want to get into, you wanted to get into hockey. Pair it with a fantasy league, and you find yourself getting more and paying more attention than just your team.
For sure. You're going to watch a lot more hockey too. You're going to be a lot more interested in it.
Yeah. I do want to go off topic real quick. I just bought us a addition for the studio. BNA, the Nashville International Airport, is ripping up all the
TNA. Nice. Some TNA in the old studio.
Beautiful.
But anyway,
the old girlfriend.
So they are ripping up the famous Nashville carpet, and they're replacing it, but they are selling it. So I bought us a doormat size piece of the actual B&A carpet to go in here.
What did that go for? That's impressive.
$35, and all the proceeds goes to helping like the airport.
You should have got.
Send me that link. I kind of want some.
You should have got like a full under the thing under the
they're
table
only selling
thing.
it in like the. But
The
I mean,
small
if we
pieces.
all want to buy one, I mean, I'm retweeting it from my personal account right now.
Yeah,
I'm
just
down.
Text it to me. You know I'm not on the tweeter. So. All right, so I think it's time for me to move into my winners. And unfortunately, my two winners are both teams and specific players. And I think one of each of you have each of these players. So it hurts me, but at this point, if I was just picking guys that were doing well for me, I couldn't pick anybody. So I would have to skip out on this part of the section. But I want to say the Vancouver Canucks as an overall, but more specifically, Elias Pettersson is straight up killing it, dude. He is looking fantastic.
Yeah.
In that 7-game series, 9 points, 3 goals, 6 assists. There was one game in that 7-game series he didn't have any points, but I think there was 4 that he was a multi-point scorer.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a young dude, and I don't think that there is any way in any realm that the Canucks are going to be able to go past Vegas right now.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
But in terms of fantasy hockey and for the future of hockey, the Canucks have a bright future, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if we see them win a cup in the next 5 years. With the team that they have some veterans, they have great goaltending in Jacob Markstrom, but Brock Besser and, Bo Horvat and guys, again, that when coming to
We have a
fantasy.
score update real quick. The Bruins just scored to go up 2-1. Marchand from Pasternak and Krug.
Oh well, I
It
get
was a
a
power play.
point for that for my defenseman, but you get every
and
other
I
point.
get nothing.
Nikita Kucherov just scored.
I'll take that one. All right,
From
boys.
Hedman?
Unassisted. Oh, wait,
Okay.
from Braden Point.
Okay.
Oh.
So there's 2 updates with multiple points from each players. So you guys just both got multiple scores from multiple players. And I have guys that are playing with all these guys, probably on the ice at the same time. Nothing.
Well, do you
dude.
have Shattenkirk or
Yeah, no, I don't.
Gaudreau or Blake
I
Coleman?
have 6 players left, Bobby. I
Oh,
know we're
man.
going to update that later, but shut up. I was having a hot take on the future of the Canucks.
I can't catch you though, Bobby. This is annoying because you said Kucherov, and I'm like, yes, I'm catching up. Nope.
But in all seriousness, the Canucks are. Bo Horvat is a guy that is a category player. You're going to score across the board with him.
Yep.
Markstrom, I had on my team this year, and I mean, at what? When we were in Dallas, I was sitting in 8th place in our 10-team league, and it was rolling in the right direction. And me and Davy were sitting outside of a brewery talking about it. I said, all right, well, it's coming. And by the end of when hockey officially ended, I was sitting in 1st place, I think.
Yeah, and
I
I think I was in 1st when we were having this
you
conversation.
were in 1st, yeah, like by a dominant
Yeah.
margin. And I had a fair amount of Canucks on there. I just foresee a bright future for them. So Pettersson, I wanted to highlight, even though I don't think that he's going to win this series. I don't think that there's many teams that could at this point in time.
I'm with you. Vegas is just way too hot.
Speaking of, my second winner was the Lightning and Braden Point. In particular, I think that we talked about it last week. I think there was no way that with the Lightning playing the Blue Jackets, and it probably is to their detriment overall. There was no way that they were losing that series. I am fairly certain that Nikita Kucherov sold his soul to the devil to say, I don't care if we win the next series. The embarrassment they suffered last year to the Blue Jackets, to the point where you don't even remember that the Penguins were swept last year. They were not losing that series. I think they would have swept if it weren't for the 5 overtime emotional win that they had. There was I just didn't feel like there was any way after all that had been let out that the Blue Jackets were going to give that up. I think it was a possibility, but it wasn't going to happen, I don't think, after watching that second game.
Mm-hmm.
But winning in 5 games, they don't look good in this series. It's 2-2. I just feel like Boston was exactly what we thought that they were going to be. And they just didn't show it in the beginning portion of it. But $6 million for a guy like Braden Point, that is highway robbery. We're talking about paying. Braden Point has consistently performed over a number of years with some of the best players in the league, superstar wise.
Yeah.
And Matt Duchene got $8 million for a month of hockey in Columbus and a playoff series, one playoff series. He got $8 million for that. And so to get Braden Point for $6 million was a steal. And so those two guys, Pedersen and Braden Point specifically, the Lightning, I feel like overall probably not winners now looking at this next series, but if they didn't beat the Blue Jackets, they would have never heard the end of it. Never.
Yeah.
Losing 2 years in a row. And to at least last year, the Blue Jackets had some star power. I mean,
they were all in last year. They really were.
Panarin, Duchene, and Bobrovsky. Losing the series to those guys is one thing. Getting swept, that hurts. But if they would have lost this series, I mean, I feel like we all think differently of those guys as maybe not fantasy players, but overall hockey players.
Agreed. Definitely.
Yeah. So let's move into the losers. And Brandon, why don't you start us off?
Starting us off, going back to back. The Capitals, most certainly the Capitals, just overall, but in particular, Nicholas Backstrom. Not only because he was on, my team, obviously that hurts me. But Backstrom, if he would have scored 20 points, that doesn't really change my outlook. At this point, I have to be impartial. Backstrom provided not only no points, but seemingly nothing to the series as a whole for the Capitals.
This is a top 100 guy, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that, again, I'm not that guy that says, "Oh, well, you didn't score a lot of points for me." You're the loser. And especially from where our point of view is of the whole picture is really what we ultimately look at. Yeah, it's bad for me in this This was just a fun fantasy league that we did, that points were the only thing that we were looking at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I expected Backstrom to score some points, but he provided what seemed like nothing to the Caps at all. Throughout the whole series, his name was barely said. He hurt them, in my opinion, and not to as great of an extent, but Kovalchuk, he was supposed to be that guy, that secret weapon that kind of snuck in there, and he's going to be a great addition to the Caps, and he was really stepping it up when he was this last year when he was at the Kings, and then he went to the Habs. And imagine, and not if he played like this, but imagine if the Habs still had Kovalchuk this year. We may be talking about a different series against Philly if he was playing like he was playing in the last stretch of the season.
Yeah,
it's possible. Yeah, we can't rule it out. I'm a guy that's never thought that Kovalchuk would ever be that guy anymore.
Yeah, I agreed. Like when the trade happened, I was like, that seems like a waste.
Yeah, and and it seems like a waste, but you always think, okay, this is a stock full roster of guys that are able to make other guys better. And it just didn't happen because he was arguably a leader when he was playing for the Canadiens, and I mean, he was really stepping it up with the Kings as just an overall player. It's like, oh, this is the guy that we've been talking about for years. You know, I mean,
Right.
it's always, well, Kovalchuk, and this is his time. This is his year. He's going to step it. He just hasn't been used to it because he was a KHL player and it was always, and then he went to the Canadians. And it looked like they finally found that guy that we've all been told to watch for over the years.
He was one of those guys we almost, I think, all picked up at one point because we were thinking about, is
absolutely.
he going to make that?
Once he got traded to the Habs, whoever ended up with him didn't let him go for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed on your team because he was scoring points. He was across the board scoring in all different categories. And so, when the Caps got him in that trade, because again, we didn't know at this point in time that there were going to be 12 playoff teams. I mean, it made sense for the Habs to trade him. It just didn't pan out. And again, like most of the Capitals didn't. And obviously Todd Reirden, I mean, what a disappointing 2 seasons after winning a Stanley Cup. We talked about it. One of my players, it hurts me as a player. It really makes me happy personally. Bennington and the Blues, dude.
Oof.
Look, I told you guys every time I picked a Blues player, if I picked a Blues player, look, I'll be happy to be wrong and get this incorrect. And I was, believe me, as a Predators fan and a Blues hater, I was happy about that. Bennington had a horrendous series, as a lot of Blues
Why
did.
did they not go back to Allen? I don't know. I mean,
Have you ever seen Jake Allen play hockey?
I sure have. But I don't know. Was that a mistake?
I think they should have gone straight empty net.
Yeah.
And my third loser, me. I have gotten my drum beat, boys, real bad. So.
Well,
Davy, let's go on to you. You got a couple of good losers on here, man.
Yeah, Hurricanes winner 2 weeks ago for me.
Right.
So, and now they're in my loser category. It's just crazy how the playoffs can just change quickly. I mean, not only that, but hockey in itself can just.
I projected them winning the cup.
I projected them to go to the cup, and I think we all had them winning this series.
I did have them winning that last series.
So this is a huge loser for me. I mean, they've been eliminated by the Boston Bruins 2 years in a row now. They were outscored 17-5 in a 4-game sweep last season. This season, I mean, it was a little better, but it still wasn't 17-5 in a 4-game sweep. But anyway, Svechnikov got injured Game 3. That didn't help. I think Chara was the issue there. He was battling Chara in front of the net, and it was unfortunate. But hey, he still got to play, or a few games, and actually it was a great asset in the postseason for him. So I mean, that was cool. It was good to see him performing, at least prior to the incident. But they lacked power, man. They were 2 for 15 on the power play in round 1. I mean, that's not going to get you far. No goals for Aho. I mean, what? Excuse me? Who would have thought that? And as a guy that has him on my fantasy team, that's very disappointing. It's a guy that you think is going to score like he did in the previous round and in the previous round, yeah. And he comes up and he throws nothing on the goal sheet.
Yeah. Well, it really changes your thought process. I think we all sat here and said last week that the Rangers were a decent team that got dominated and outplayed.
Yeah.
Whereas you watch them this last series, like, look, none of us would sit here and be surprised. We all had, the Hurricanes winning because the Bruins looked bad, the Hurricanes looked great. But now looking back at it, was it exactly as what we feared, that Boston didn't turn it on and the Hurricanes were playing a bad Rangers team? And that seems like what ultimately happened was we got by that exciting first round matchup
and Boston didn't look great either, though. So that's why I thought like Carolina coming into Boston. But like I said,
were they sandbagging it? Because here's the thing, they're getting a good seeding now. being that number 4, they're getting good matchups.
Yeah.
So maybe what I said wasn't that far-fetched, where coaches are looking at this, GMs are looking at this like saying,
hey,
hey,
sounding more and more right.
It wasn't far-fetched last week when you said it. It was just hard for you to believe by watching Sebastian Aho play hockey.
Exactly.
He dominated. And I mean, it wasn't like the Rangers just threw it up in the air and didn't play hockey. They played it. It was a good series that was over quickly. But you thought, okay, well, I mean, the Hurricanes are just that good. I completely agree. Aho, it's not like any of us would sit here and be surprised that the Hurricanes didn't win that series.
Or were the Rangers specifically tanking? Because guess what? It worked. They got the first overall pick.
I don't think that's the case, but I mean, it's not. We just didn't see the same Hurricanes, or just they were not playing the same caliber.
The Rangers should send a thank
you
card to Carolina, though.
Yeah.
For their great pick that they get.
They absolutely did.
Yeah, as frustrating as it is that a playoff team gets the number 1 pick, I think that we all can agree that the worst playoff team did get the first pick.
Yeah.
They
did.
I mean, they have some superstars in Zibanejad and Panarin, but across the board,
and they wouldn't have been a playoff team. In a regular season. They wouldn't have been a playoff team.
Right. What about D'Angelo though? I'm just
D'Angelo.
kidding.
Hey, what? No, I was Adam Fox, bro. You were D'Angelo.
Oh, I know.
I got 0 points on Adam Fox.
I
heard his name like 6 times though.
Because he was going to serve his 2 minutes.
Yeah, he was passing out champagne on the bench because they knew they were getting that number 1 pick.
They were pumped.
Bobby, you got some losers.
No, I got one more. I got one more for you guys.
Davy's got one more.
I've got the Philadelphia Flyers. Reason I've got these guys in here is because it has been a tough go round for 3 guys, particularly who are a big part of that team. 0 goals for Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny.
Yeah.
How? They have some offensive issues going on right now. I mean, that's 10 games without a goal, longest of the season for Couturier and Konechny. That's incredible. 10 games without a goal. I mean, gosh, and when you need them the most.
You're talking about one of my 6 guys left, so be careful over there, buddy.
Hey, it's gonna continue, I think. I think it is. I really do. I mean, how can you go this far without it? I mean, you have Giroux, right?
I have Giroux. I would absolutely trade him for a blade of grass at this point. But yeah, I do have him.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The Flyers had 11 goals in their 3-game round robin, but have only 11 goals through 7 games of the first and second round. What?
Defense, baby.
Yeah. So that's sad, and they're definitely
Niskanen. He'll F you up, dude.
Yeah, he will, won't he? So they're projecting in the downward position right now. Hold on one second. Sorry, I spelled it wrong. They scored the NHL's 7th most goals per game during the regular season, and then obviously the round robin looked like it was going to be the exact same situation. They were going to come out and they were going to score a bunch of goals. And then, of course, round 1, round 2, it has not been the same story. It's been very unfortunate. Don't even have a bright spot other than maybe Carter Hart. I mean, is he the guy that
Kevin Hayes maybe?
Yeah,
Kevin Hayes looks good again. Being a fantasy podcast, we've all experienced having Kevin Hayes on there. A category monster when it comes to across the board. Yeah, he's looked good, and I hear what you're saying. They haven't looked bad. No. They just haven't looked great.
It's hard to hear 0 goals for those 3 guys, Giroux, Couturier, and Konechny. It's just hard to hear that. And those are 3 guys that need to step it up. And especially, I'd say that slight edge in the goaltending to the Flyers in the series, but Varlamov has been playing really good. Yeah. The Islanders, I am going to say that the Islanders will pull the series off. I mean, I will say that based on how I'm seeing.
That's a tough one. I think I was telling Rand, they're one of the other series, the only ones I think is going to go 7. The Dallas Avalanche. I think, I think Philly can. I think Philly can pull it off in 6. But I think that if the Islanders win, what are they up? They're up now.
They're 2. They're up 1-0.
1-0. Okay, I thought they were 2-0. Okay,
and to say Carter Hart's looked okay.
Yeah,
at playing, but I mean. Varlamov has a shutout right
Yeah.
now, you
Yeah.
know, and Carter Hart has 4 dropped on him and some dope
Right.
goals. So Carter Hart has looked probably overall better throughout the entirety of the playoffs, which I think is what you were saying.
Yep,
But through
absolutely.
this series, I mean, hard to sit here and argue with a guy that's you know, 1-2 series essentially at this point. You know, one being a 5-game series, but just walking through one of the greatest goal scorers last series. You know, I mean, to whip up on the Caps like that is no joke. So,
All right, so my 2 losers are not necessarily losers because of their play. Kemper is a loser because
he lost.
by the technical term, yes, but because he's got to deal with that shitstorm of a team around him, dude. You put his effort and his ability on a different team, you're looking at a team that could go far. I always feel so bad when a goalie does so much, can steal games, stole multiple games, but yet gets let down by his team day in and day out. And it just, you got to feel for him. And secondly, I got the Blackhawks. Listen, I love being able to say the Blackhawks are a loser, but the fact is they did better than the Preds. They didn't look horrible. They got a really bad seeding against Vegas, and honestly, now their Blackhawks are starting to fall into that weird spot. There was a year or two when they were like bottom of the division, and they got some good picks. Now they're falling in that second round of the playoffs. They get bad picks. They've got aging players.
Technically, they're only in the first round of the playoffs. Okay.
So
Technically.
but they're not going to have a good pick. They've got
qualifying rounds are not real.
Yeah. But either way, so they've got
I'll die on that hill, Bobby.
They've got aging talent. I mean, listen, when their bright spot is Jonathan Toews, I mean, that's not going to last you more.
You know, and I hear what you're saying because their top-notch players were, you know, the older guy. They were the youngest team in the playoffs. You know, I mean, Kubalik, I feel like we have seen the future of the Blackhawks. And if you're a Chicago fan, it's great. If you're not a Chicago fan,
but is he
a central guy?
But he's not a cup. I don't think he's going to be a cup winner like Kane was. And they're going to have to, but you know, Kane was able to do it with like 1 or 2 pieces around him.
You know, Kane is still there, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the issue. And while I hear what you're saying, I mean, Toews and Kane, I mean, especially Toews, looked like the 2008 Cup winning.
Yeah,
Toews.
no, and I
know
get
what I'm
that.
saying.
He
Like,
really did, man.
But are they going to look like that through an off season? Through through what? Who knows what kind of regular season we're going to have? If we're going to be in a bubble or not?
I am by no means arguing for them being overall great.
I don't know, man. You got that new Blackhawks license plate and that new hat.
I hope that you're right, and I hope that all of these guys that we're talking about get arthritis, okay? And they're like next year, because they're 70, they can't walk, okay? But we're talking about when we say they have an older core, yeah, but like veteran leadership is what wins championships. And like, as much as I hate to sit here and say it, they get 1 or 2 more of the right pieces, and we're having a different.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now they're making it hard for they're in a tough position now to get those new pieces.
I agree, through the draft and through, you know, bringing in young guys. But like, dude, who doesn't want to go play hockey at the United Center in Chicago? You know, that's what I'm saying. Like,
It's one of the greater places.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as much as I despise the Chicago Blackhawks, dude, being in Chicago before and going to the United Center, the house that Jordan built, dude, it was cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
like,
it's a great place.
I think they'll be good again in 4 or 5 years. But I think that they were starting to look like they were 2 years from finishing this rebuild and be ready. So now getting where they are now, this kind of middle tier area, they're going to extend that a little bit. I think the Blackhawks will be better before the Preds are better.
I want to highlight to you that I don't disagree with what you're saying. Like, we're talking about in this gray area of where the Blackhawks have this opportunity to advance or decline. And I hope that you're right. And I hope that we're seeing the eventual decline of this middle road team. We all know what I know exactly what you're saying, where they're middle of the road and they're just good enough to not be bad enough to get good again, but they're not good enough to win. And is that what you're saying essentially?
And I think the question we have to ask is,
you're
are
right.
we seeing, did they hit their rock bottom last year and now they're on their way up, or are they still teeter-tottering?
I think that they did, and also look at their division. It's not easy. It's a tough division.
And now you get Arizona added to that division.
As much as I love the depth and the wherewithal it takes to get through the Central, I do think we're seeing the end of an era of a division.
Where for it was sure.
bad. I mean, we're talking about the Jets that didn't look good.
Yeah,
the Preds are not only didn't look good, but the GM is coming out and saying we're not looking good.
There was 3 years when the Central was the most feared division.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
I think we're entering an era of what the Metro has seen with the Penguins and the Capitals for a long, long time. I think we're entering the era of Dallas and the Avs, and that's the teams to fear in the Central.
I think you're right.
You know, and I mean, and that's the way that the NHL is. It's cyclical. It's gonna happen like this. I just don't. If you look at the teams matched up 2 years ago, you saw any of the Central teams as your first matchup. Yeah. You are nervous, dude. It didn't matter which one.
I think the NHL is moving to like a Thanos dream now. Everything's starting to equal out. You've got the Bruins and the Lightning and the Atlantic. You've got the Metro with now the Islanders and I guess maybe the Caps. You got you've got the Pacific, I guess, Vegas and Vancouver now. Like, there's no one powerhouse of a division now.
I agree.
And if anything, the Central is getting the shit under the stick now because they're getting the Coyotes now.
That's the best. Right. That's the best version of any sport, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if you guys remember this way back in the day. It was one of my favorite commercials all time when they're going through and it's an NFL commercial and they're going through and like it's talking about before a specific season, an NFL fan will just nonchalantly, like matter-of-factly say a fact about the NFL. And it was the year after that the AFC East, when they were so dominant. And then they became a bad division after 1 year. And the guy looks at his buddy and he goes, name a better division in the NFL than the AFC East. I dare you. And, it was like after this had already happened a year before.
Right.
And so like that's what we all hope for in sports is we don't, we all want to see a dynasty 20 years after it happens. Nobody wants to sit there and watch a dynasty and be bored with sports. A dynasty is only cool 15 years later when you didn't have to experience it. And and that's what I've loved about the NHL for so long, and from learning about the history and learning more about it is there are a couple dynasties here and there, but like eventually you're not a dynasty anymore, and that's what's so frustrating about having to watch the Patriots in the NFL is that it's not just been like a couple years. It's not a 4-year run with the Islanders winning
19
constantly.
years.
Right. It's like, they don't win every single year, but like you have to be worried about them winning every single year.
Yeah.
And
they haven't had a year where they're just like not good.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
And so I'm excited about and I hope that what you're saying is right, Bobby. I really do, but I feel like I don't want to be dumb and say that it's not a possibility that we don't see the Blackhawks win the cup in a couple of years. Yeah. That's the most frustrating part about it. All
right, so let's get into our last segment. We're going to just give a quick update of the scores. We talked about it a bit. I'm sitting in first place with 334. Davy's sitting at second with 326. And Brandon's at 267.
It's playing golf rules, right, boys?
So Brandon is 67 points behind me, and Davy's 8.
Do we want to go a quick run through of our who we have remaining?
Yeah.
It'll be real quick for me, so I'll go first. I have Patrice Bergeron, Mikko Rantanen, Claude Giroux, Gabriel Landeskog, Victor Hedman, and Shea Theodore. And I know what you're thinking. Brandon, go ahead and say your goalies. I don't have any goalies, so go. Who's up?
I'll run through mine. So this is where I'm currently sitting. I'm Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Elias Pettersson, Torrey Krug, Quinn Hughes, John Klingberg, Miro Heiskanen, Vasilevsky, Bishop, Fleury, and Francois are my goaltenders.
And you didn't even have to read Stamkos. He doesn't have any points for
I know.
And you're
None.
still dominating me, so.
So I've got left David Pasternak and Brad Marchand, which have just killing it for me. Exactly what I wanted to happen
Shut
is
up,
happening.
Bobby. Just keep reading.
I've got Mark Stone and Pat Chiaretti and Braden Point, which has the most points on my team. He's my VIP so far, or my MVP.
Zip.
On my defense, I've got Cale Makar with 21 points, killing it.
Vip.
I've got Ivan Provorov, Charlie McAvoy, Mikhail Sergachev, Ryan Graves, or the Trash Man, as we now call him.
Trash Man's got more points than most of my guys. So,
Man.
My goalies, technically, I still have 3, but I have 2 because Tuukka Raska's still on the team. And I've got Carter Hart and Markstrom, and Carter Hart and Markstrom have just been killing it for me. They're keeping me in this.
yeah.
But yeah, so all of us. If Boston or Vegas goes out, I'm screwed. If Dallas goes out, you're screwed.
I'm done.
You're screwed either way.
I'm basically screwed. Yeah.
I
that was a good way of putting it.
I need Vancouver too. I really, because with Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, I need Vancouver.
My problem, yeah, Vancouver would obviously take you a lot further because we don't. Markstrom, but like the maximum you can get from a goalie in a game is 5 points. So like,
right,
Pettersson scores 3 goals and Bobby gets a shutout win. It doesn't help Bobby at all.
Well, he could get a couple assists.
My biggest problem is that even if my guys move on, that means your main guys move on. So like I'm basically just like carrying you guys to the ship at this point. I am it is not looking good for me. My top scorer is Rantanen with 32. But then other than that, my top scorer is Connor McDavid, and he got to play. He got to play 5 games. So he's been out for weeks.
Oh man.
Hey, but at least my logic was solid on my number 1 pick.
Yeah,
Was like,
yeah,
look,
it was.
even if he goes out, I think I literally said, even if he goes out first round, I would feel bad about not picking him. And like, obviously, that's the truth. Number 2 scorer and my number 1 scorer on the team, just feeding Davy's number 1 scorer, just topping out the league here.
McKinnon with 46 points for me, so I'll take it.
I'm rooting for you guys. Everybody knows I'm a full category style player. So,
so my bottoms, I think the person who got me the least amount of points, Panarin, only got me 6 points.
I didn't know that we wanted to extend the episode for an hour. Are we reading who got us the least points?
I've got zeros everywhere. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
I do not have a 0 anywhere though. So,
oh man,
you have no zeros.
Shesterkin, a goalie. Sorry.
And he was injured.
Is that just for your active players, or that was everybody?
I have no 0 points.
Unbelievable. We went through this a couple weeks ago. I had like 10.
We gave you so much crap, dude, and that's so funny that we sit here. That is the number 1 rule in fantasy, though. Is like, look, if you're not smack talking, then what are you doing in fantasy, dude? Get out.
Oh, I like it.
And I regret nothing that I said to Bobby, but it makes so much sense now. Like, we smack talked him. You have 1-0. That's it?
Yeah, Shesterkin.
So crazy.
1, 2, 3. Okay, I only have 2 zeros, but I have 1, 2, 3. I have like 3 guys with 2 points, dude.
Yeah, I think I've got 1 guy with 2 points, and that's Mikhail Sergachev. He's still in. Other than that, I've got Morgan Riley with 3.
My goalies got me a total of 17 points. Are you guys kidding me?
Well, I have 6 zeros. Still have 1 active 0.
You have
Stamkos.
6 zeros, but you are dominating me, dude. Are you kidding? Are you guys kidding me?
Well, I was unlucky with my goalies a little bit, but I still.
And again, it goes into the defensive guys. Because I was making fun of Bobby so hard and I went hard at it and I went hard on him, I didn't really think about what I was doing. A team that I didn't think was going to go far, I went Werenski and Seth Jones. Both of them scored 9 points, so I appreciate the 18 being out almost immediately.
Right.
Like again, get into that zone.
The Penguins hurt you, I think, was the biggest thing, was losing the Crosby and the Malkin.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and Crosby got me 8 points. Malkin got me 2 points, fellas.
Jake Gunsel got me 7.
Fellas, I got 10 points from 2 of the most dominant players in the league. Like, I am not even talking in any world of this discussion if McDavid didn't get me 28.
Yeah.
I'm just honestly my last pick though is I think the sleeper Patrick Kane, dude. We all overlooked Patrick Kane the entire. I even mentioned him. I was like, maybe you should take Patrick Kane, and everyone's like, no, 20 points.
20 points.
Mine was not because I didn't think he was going to do well. It was more because screw that, buddy. I'm not taking that guy.
If I had to guess right now, I think Bobby's got this. I think he does. And I don't want to rule against myself, but man, you've just got those Boston players and those Vegas players.
Yeah.
And I don't have Vegas except for Fleury, and he might get a game or two, but
that's the biggest problem is Stone and Pacioretty still being there.
And it looks like they could go far.
The problem is for Davy right now, because let's just be honest, it's not a 3-man competition at this point. I feel like I'm the host. I feel like I'm hosting you guys here for this fantasy.
You should let us buy your remaining players.
You have I got 6 players. I got 6 players left. It's not a bad.
Let's talk about let's talk about it this week.
All fair. But honestly, I feel like Bobby has. Wow.
Because I got the synergy.
Well, you have the most of the best options left. While I feel Davy has the best team left, all it takes is 2 more Dallas Stars wins and Davy's effed. You know what I'm saying? And his top players right now are on Tampa.
But then he's also got he's got Heiskanen and who else you got?
Yeah,
I have Klingberg and Ben Bishop, but I don't see Ben Bishop.
Klingberg and
you don't have Heiskanen?
Yeah,
I have Klingberg and Heiskanen are the guys I have.
Klingberg and Heiskanen are great, but you can't count. You can't
They're
count on
too.
defense. Yeah, you can't count. Yes, they'll probably score him some points, but you can't count on them to advance him to the next level as much as now. If they lose and he still gets to have Colorado, dude, I mean, there is a very high chance that Nathan McKinnon
And I just have to hope
I
just have to hope that Cale Makar keeps feeding them, because that's one of the main reasons that Cale Makar is feeding those two guys.
How many points does he have right now?
He's got me 21 points on defense.
21, that's great. Klingberg has 19, Miro has 32. So, I mean, that's a damn good number.
Yeah, so you guys are neck and neck, even with Stamkos not being a real.
And if Stamkos turns it
option,
I mean,
I hope he gets some time. Are they going to do what they did last year? Was it last year? When was it? They just threw him in the last game. He wasn't playing the first few games or whatever. Yeah, and then they threw him in the last game when he had that foot injury. Is there an update
on him yet?
I haven't heard an update yet. No.
Yeah. So. The biggest problem for Davy is going to be his potential goalies. If Boston wins, I think there's no way that he can win, because 2 of his goalies that may win are not playing.
Right.
And his goalie that is playing may not get to keep playing if they lose, obviously. So we got us a good little battle here going between you guys, obviously, not me.
The next podcast is going to be, we'll probably know. Probably be a little bit more clear what's going on
2
here.
2 weeks from now is a long time, yet such a short time away. I mean, it is. I'm very intrigued to watch this matchup.
Yeah.
Bobby, get us out
of
here,
guys.
bro.
We will see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see you in a couple days for the regular show. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Pucks Out Podcast. To see what other ridiculousness the guys are up to, check them out on Twitter and Instagram @PucksOutPod.